If there's a road that could go on forever, where would it take you? And if the shadows rolled in heavy, darling, could you see the truth? Do you think that you could find it in the letters and the notes? Walking round in the footsteps of someone else's ghost. So would you come a little closer? Come a little closer. Just come a little closer.
Hi everyone, this is Liam Warsaw. If you don't know me, that's okay. I'm not really sure what kind of a reach we're going to be getting here. I live and work in Chicago, trying to find work as a DJ. In the meantime, just taking odd jobs and now this podcast. I want to explain what exactly I'm doing here with the podcast, but to do that, I need to give a little bit of background. Like I said, I live in Chicago. If you've never been to Illinois, it's in the northeast corner of the state, pretty much exactly opposite St. Louis. About 5 years ago, I was still in college at DePaul University here, and I took a trip to St. Louis with some friends. We took the Greyhound bus there, and somehow I missed the ride back, and had to wait for another one. The next bus took a much slower route, almost never getting on the interstate. I was the only person on board for most of the night, until we stopped in a town I had never been to called Schroding. A man, probably about my age, got on. Like I said, the bus was empty, but he sat down right next to me. We sat in silence until he turned to look at me and introduced himself as Benny. We started talking, which I almost never do with strangers, but there was something about him that just seemed natural? You know when you meet people like that? Like we were already comfortable talking to each other even though we hadn't met before. He asked me about my school, which is what most people seem to do when you're in college, but he seemed genuinely interested when I told him that I worked at the DePaul radio station. I found out that he had lived in Schroding his entire life. I asked him what he was going to Chicago for, and he just said, "Everyone goes to the big city at least once." Didn't really answer my question, but it was technically true, I suppose. When we got to the Greyhound station in Chicago, I asked Benny for his number. I know that sounds a little forward on my part, but again, there was just something about him. He told me he didn't have a phone, but if I gave him my address, he could write me a letter. I agreed, realizing that giving my address to a random guy might not be the best idea. But nothing murdery ever happened. We just wrote each other letters like pen pals. Benny came to Chicago a few times over the next 3 years or so. He'd always write me about 2 weeks in advance and suggest we get food or a drink while he was in the big city, as he always called it. I never knew what he was doing in Chicago, and after the first few times of hearing him give a non-committal answer, I stopped asking. Whenever I saw Benny, he was always wearing the same clothes. Large frame glasses, a trucker's hat, purple windbreaker, and what I could only describe was dad jeans. I joked once that he dressed like my father, which I don't think he found funny. He never really liked talking about himself. In fact, I think the most I ever really knew about him was that he was a car mechanic in Schroding. He loved hearing about me, though, and most of our time spent together involved me telling him stories from when I was a kid. Looking back, I realize how strange it was to have a friend who only wanted to talk about my childhood, but at the time it seemed incredibly normal. Just over a year ago, a couple years out of college, Benny sent me a letter in which he asked me to visit him. He said he couldn't make it to the big city anymore, but he wanted to see me. I tried to see how long of a drive it would be to see him, but I couldn't find his address on Google Maps. Not only that, I couldn't find Schroding on Google Maps, or anywhere, for that matter. It was like the town just didn't exist as far as the internet was concerned. But somehow, I'd been sending him letters, and he was responding. I sent a letter expressing my confusion and asking him if he could help me get directions, since I did want to visit him, and at this point my curiosity was piqued. He never responded to my letter, or to any of the others that I sent over the next year when I would think about him. Nothing. It's like he disappeared. And that brings us to now. Or more accurately, 2 weeks ago, when there was a knock on my apartment door. Outside, I was greeted by a delivery man who asked me to confirm my name and for my signature. He told me Benny had passed away, and that I had been in his will. He handed me a large box marked with Benny's address in Shroding, Illinois, gave what I think were condolences, and walked away. It took me 3 days to open the box, and when I finally did, found it filled with stacks of manila file folders, some of them almost empty, some of them filled to bursting. There was no apparent organization or sorting system, they were just a bunch of files. As I flipped through a few of them, I realized that they were stories, pictures, interviews, and other research about Shroding. People, places, anything. I didn't manage to read them all, and I think it'll be a long time before I'm able to do that, but I did find one file at the bottom of the box that I want to share with you now. Before I do, I think you now have enough background for me to say what this podcast is going to be about. Benny was a car mechanic in Shroding, Illinois, a town that doesn't exist, according to the internet and every map I've been able to find. But it seems like he thought there was something about Shroding that he needed to investigate. I have to believe that he was working on this longer than just the year he stopped writing me, but I really don't know. Almost nothing is dated. Whatever he was doing, I think he wanted me to have this box to see what he was seeing. And maybe he was so interested in my work in radio because he wanted me to tell everyone else too. I'm not sure. So for now, listeners, I'm going to do my best to read through these files and try to piece together what exactly Benny was doing. A file I found at the bottom of the box was labeled Benny, all caps. It only had one piece of paper in it, with words and handwriting I recognized as my strange friends. Hi, Liam. If you're reading this, you should know. I'm not dead. Love, Benny. My name is Liam Warsaw, and this is the Shroding Box.
The Shroding Box is written and produced by Josiah Bender. The role of Liam Warsaw is played by Ben Herman. Our script editor is Becca Janney, and Andrew Davis is our audio engineer. The cover art for The Shroding Box was created by Darby Hepner. Come a Little Closer and other music written and performed by Haunted Like Human. For more of their music and tour information, go to hauntedlikehuman.com. The Shroding Box is made possible by audience support. Please share the show with your friends and on social media. You can donate money on our GoFundMe page by going to gofundme.com and searching for The Shroding Box. Thank you to everyone for your support.